Debbie. Thank you, and Debbie. It's my great pleasure for the folks in Macheke, Zimbabwe, Kenya, all the various people who may be watching in on this. My name is Rick Medrick. I'm the chair for Molly's committee, and it's been a great honor when she first arrived here in Prescott. She was uncertain about whether she should be here and whether she could function among these other scholars coming in, and whether she really had a purpose or not. And over the last 4 years, I have seen that purpose emerge and heard her stories of her home community of Macheke, and been deeply moved by all of this. And her vision that she has evolved over the years of how to move a community from awareness or consciousness of poverty to one of abundance. Molly actually gave me a bit of a script here to follow and a list of things to cover. But just to give you a picture of her background, she's been in this country for almost 20 years. And believe it or not, she has a BS in electrical engineering. She has an MS in software engineering. And she's been working for various corporations applying this work for all this time until she came here to Prescott. And she had this vision of what was possible for her home community. And her story of growing up there is deeply moving. She writes about this in her dissertation. So all of you who've been part of Molly's life for all these years, I'm sure you've experienced this. And all of you who are here, perhaps too numerous to mention, except for Rose. Where's Rose? Oh, there you are. Molly's mother and the mother of 6 siblings? 7, okay. It was 6 or 7, I knew that. And, with Molly's support, everybody, and this is part of your culture too. Everyone has stayed connected with your home community of Macheke, and gone out into the world and created careers for yourself and resources that you can bring back into your community. So we're lucky to work with 3 other great committee members. Dr. Susan Gupta, who's professor of MBA and program director at Monmouth College in New Jersey. Dr. Chris Kirchler, many of you are here today, professor of the School of Nursing and Health and Study Abroad at Monmouth University, and our own Dr. Noel Canavia. And we've just had an incredible experience working with Molly and seeing her begin to articulate her vision and going back and connecting with her home community and all the people there, being an inspiration and setting the stage for and creating a nonprofit, the Macheke Foundation, whatever it is now, and doing this incredible vision of what would be possible for a small community town, Macheke, she calls it, in Zimbabwe, that also be possible for many other towns and communities in Zimbabwe and elsewhere. So we're very proud to have her here and have all the family members. But where are you, Molly?
I'm coming.
There's an African proverb that says, when you pray to God, move your feet. This expression of prayer that you just witnessed, with beautiful color, with vibrancy, with spirituality, is part of the abundance that we as African people bring to the world. The song we were dancing to is by a beautiful Zimbabwean woman named Hope Masike. It's named Mushamukazi. That's translated to, the home is the woman. You can also call it the homestead, or the community is the maternal spirit. Every human being can tune in to this maternal spirit. My name is Molly. Welcome. Today is my PhD presentation. We'll spend the next 30 minutes talking about abundance. From a gratitude attitude perspective, I would like to start by offering my acknowledgement. Certainly first and very foremost, my Creator, for molding me with kindness. My ancestors and spirit mediums for nurturing me in the womb. The Africans who came before me on American soil. You, each and every one of you, for your sacred presence here today. My committee, I suspect Chris and Susan, you're probably online. Hi. Noel and Rick, love you. My mentors, my collaborators, thank you. Deep, deep gratitude to the research heroes in Macheke that were so generous with their information and with their time and with their love PhD cohort 6. We are so amazing. My family, those online, my nieces, my nephews, my brother Rob in Kenya, my brother Faj, Farai in Kenya, my brother William in Zimbabwe, and he's probably in Macheke if there is electricity at this point, he's probably online as well. My sister Chipo, my sister Linda in Canada, and my friends who are here today, Tembi, Bonnie, Dr. Samantha Stoller, my one and only older sister, who is such a great role model, Dr. Feli Madziva, my nephew, Ishe, such a ball of sunshine, I love you. Thank you for dancing with Melanie. That is Winkler. You've befriended my heart, and for that I'm grateful. Mama, so home. Do not tell. My study is based on centering on abundance as a guide to sustainability in the development community of Macheke in Zimbabwe. I dedicate this study to my mother, Gaudiosa Rose Madziva, from whom I learned the most about courage. To my father, the late Felix Chikosha Madziva, the one whose humility and grace I most admire. So I'm from Zimbabwe, Southern Africa. I was born in 1975. And I had to draw Macheke into the map because we are still quite invisible to the rest of the world. But my work is bringing my village to the rest of you. So I started on an emotional journey based on the challenges that we were facing in Macheke. The locals have hardly been a part of the solution, including myself. The education system has not evolved to better serve our better potential. Development policies have mostly been economy-centric. As some of you may know, Zimbabwe is one of the poorest countries in the world, with a GDP of about 600, third lowest in the world. There's been decades of environmental damage or neglect. We carry the poverty consciousness. Everybody calls us poor. We are the dark continent. And we also have colonial scars. I'll read here what Rose, who is supposed to be the person who found Zimbabwe, he said to his fellow British people in the 1880s, I contend that we are the finest race in the world, and that the more of the world we inhabit, the better it is for the human race. But challenges could not hold me down. Inspiration came from many aspects of who I am, starting with the lived experience. Being born a young Shona village girl, watching my parents fight for our freedom. The year that I was born is the official year that we began our liberation struggle from British colonial rule. I was born feet first because I was determined. So I consider myself to be a true survivor of freedom poverty. I inherited African spirituality, and we'll talk a bit more about that, and it's been an inspiration. From very early on, I refused poverty. With deep gratitude to a woman like my mother, who said, "While you cannot go to this all-white school, you are beautiful. Your day will come." And boy, has it. So, in being inspired by the world that I inherited, being born smack in the middle of a liberation struggle, but with a deep sense of wanting to contribute in wanting to make this world better, that we will live for the generations to come. Thank you, Mommy, and thank you, Daddy, for fighting. I need to speak about African spirituality because it has hardly been involved in science-based intervention when we talk about Africa. But it is a reality. Egyptian concepts look at spirituality as truth, balance, order, law, morality. This is so similar to our African ethic as Shona people that we call Hunu. Others may know it as Ubuntu. The West Africans may look at it as a developmental quest to achieve ancestorhood, but it requires ethical existence. It's been known that Africans generally view the role of humanity as one of harmonizing with nature and the supernatural world. Very often, we carve out sacred spaces that are located out in nature, whether it be trees or groves or mountains or caves. My mother has told me the story of how the Muhacha tree has been sacred in her lineage. It is under this tree that they would go and offer prayer for rain, and it was guaranteed, these prayer warriors, that it would rain. Now imagine if the rest of the world embraced this kind of spirituality where we said there is a particular tree that we will not cut down. We will continue to make sure that we uphold it. I don't think we'll be having the conversations that we're all having today about climate change and issues of, being disconnected to the wild and not being able to face our own darkness. Cohort 6, you're with me on this one? Now, for the purposes of my study, I want to let you know that I use African spirituality or the term spirituality to mean sacred existence that is sustained by wisdom and fortune. The broader one's wisdom of their innate fortune, right, the deeper their spirit. Why should a PhD student study spirituality? Why not? Abundance, I need to speak about this because it is central to my study. Spiritual teachers have talked about abundance as something that you really can't acquire as such, but you tune into it. When you look at the English dictionary, it talks more about the quantities, right? Abundance. Others are talking about abundance being achieved through cultivating kindness, awareness, and living a purposeful life. I use this term to mean the interaction of hope, faith, and gratitude. Gratitude being the foundation of all abundance. And I'm talking specifically for my village in Macheke. Why at this scholarship level should I be focusing on abundance when I'm thinking about poverty eradication? Well, focusing on poverty has not quite eradicated issues in Macheke, let alone in all of Africa. We all know the stories of aid being shipped to Africa on a daily basis. So my research question is, what is poverty? And what is required for a so-called poor community to achieve sustainability? Is this something that's just for those in the developed world? Is this something that's so far off that we can't reach it? What is so wrong with us as Africans that we continue to be this dark continent that everybody else has to continuously want to help? So I went deep and wide and broad, thank you Pramod, with my literature review. I looked at the current economic situation in Africa with the case study of Zimbabwe. Macheke is not well documented. Perhaps if you Google it, the first thing that may come up is my name. The overview of the IMF policy, the International Monetary Fund. They are responsible for seeing that nations are healthy from a monetary perspective. Particularly with the structural adjustment program that was instituted in Zimbabwe in the 1990s. We grew up calling it ISA. The overview of the UN Millennium Development Goals, particularly the Millennium Villages Project, and they're describing this as a science-based intervention. I'll come back to this. I also looked at the overview of sustainable community development. So from the literature, I had to come back and think about how can I model this to get a better sense of what's going on so that for me at this scholarship level, I can actually begin to suggest and contribute to what's already known. Thank you, Noah, for challenging me to come up with a model. So what I'm seeing in the literature is that the good-hearted people in the developed world look at Africa and see poverty. And well, because they are so good, they're like, we're going to do something about it. And that's where the sustainability sectors come in. Some are looking at the environment, some at the social justice issues, some at the economic issues. Broadly more on the economic issues. And how are they solving the issues? Aid. We'll come back to this. Please remember this, you may be quizzed. My theoretical framework has actually been about trying to understand abundance, or what we call the abundance consciousness, from an appreciative inquiry perspective. It's a social constructionist approach to investigating a group or a community, really trying to figure out how we can shift our focus onto the potential rather than the need, onto what's there rather than the scarcity. Sacred economics, challenging us in this world where we are constantly controlled by how the economy works, to reduce alienation, competition, and scarcity. The management theory framework helped me to further analyze what we're calling the three bottom lines of sustainability: the economy, the ecology, and the people themselves. Well, I showed up, and I'm suggesting a fourth line of prosperity that embraces spirituality. Just to give you a better sense of how appreciative inquiry works. So you could show up in a community where you want to help, and I trust that we all want to help. But if you're looking at it from a problem-solving perspective, you are going to look at the felt need and an identification of problems. And they have long lists, right? But if you are looking at it from an appreciative perspective, you are going to show up and right away begin to appreciate. You are going to value the best of what is. That leads into envisioning what might be, engaging in dialogue about what should be. Innovation and hence sustainability. My research design involved participatory action research. I am the founder of the Macheke Sustainability Project, a profound initiative that's looking from a holistic perspective how we can begin to look at some of the issues that plague us in my community. So looking at this as an inquiry request needed to have me participate. But also, I was not that outsider that showed up, got some data, walked away, and the situation is still exactly the same. I also used mindful ethnography. And I'm calling it mindful because I am at the center of this research, and I'm deeply mindful of our scars. I am deeply mindful of where we're trying to go. The methods I used were really based on what was more relevant for my community. Focus groups worked very well because most of the students I was working with are already used to a classroom environment just without the exam. One-on-one interviews helped us to actually have dialogue that was meaningful, and I met my research heroes in various parts of the community. We were eating majanje while we were talking. We were taking walks. I met them at where they were working. So wherever it was, where they felt most proud. I also had the privilege to take on some serious observation. For the past 6 or 7 years, I've been observing what's been going on around in Zimbabwe. But I was also very privileged to travel to Kenya and look at one of the Millennium Villages projects in Sauri as an observation as to how others who are particularly looking at it from a science-based perspective are trying to embark on this issue. After collecting all my data and hearing things such as, well, you're saying I'm poor, but if I am poor, that is how I am going to survive. I already knew right away that we are perhaps calling people poor and terming them something, and yet spiritually they are viewing their lives with abundance and gratitude, and that's probably a better place to start. So my development concepts, I hope you all remember the other diagram we looked at. Good, James, I see you. So, sure enough, there is poverty. I am not denying that, particularly on the economic perspective. But I am also starting this project and this study by acknowledging that there is abundance that exists, that is emerging, that is possible. With my sustainability factors, I had to change that diagram around because I realized that based on my conversations with people in Macheke, we cannot separate the people, the environment, their spirituality. The economy is still important. It helps us to trade, and we love trade. We love to produce, we love to innovate, exchange things. But we are doing ourselves a disservice, particularly in a place like Macheke, by trying to separate those aspects. The intervention is the part that I am most proud of in all the work that I did. This is my true contribution to the world of community development. I am suggesting that instead of aid, we should consider sustainable aid. And I'll talk a bit more about that. But also, we must remember that we need to intervene with abundant leadership. So going a little bit further into the interventions, I'm looking at sustainable aid in the forms of social entrepreneurship. Mohammed Yunus has done amazing work with this. This is where we are saying, I'm not coming to drop a bag of corn or just sending you some money so that you can continue in your consumerism. But I am challenging you because I know you have potential to invest in your future, that you begin to develop more with what I have provided so that we can be able to continue to help each other and develop our own communities. Social corporate responsibility. We have a lot of good options and a lot of great leaders in Africa that are looking at this. A good example is our very own Zimbabwean, Madziva. We've been, of late, working on Core 6. We've been working on trying to figure out how, with all the wealth that he has accumulated as a CEO of one of the biggest companies in Zimbabwe, to support entrepreneurship and innovation. So here's award running. If you come up with a good idea, you can win the award, and right away you don't have to go to the bank. You can use that funding to do something, but remembering that it's an investment. The issue of diaspora remittances. Any African that's in this room probably knows what I'm talking about, because at one point or another, we are at Western Union or any other bank transfer source sending money back home to our families. There are many different opportunities for us to really look at how we are managing these remittances so that we can begin to take ownership of our own development. Holistic initiatives, I had to plug in my project one more time. I really think that looking at the issue of poverty from a holistic perspective is going to put us on the foot of the development ladder so we can climb it on our own. Abundance. You just witnessed it. Amazing, beautiful women, so full of love and generosity. How can you say we are poor? We are looking at abundance dialogue. And a good example of this, because I tested it, I'm a scholar, right? Giving a lecture to high school students in Macheke in November 2012. From that lecture, I realized that I'm just reminding them to be proud of who they are, regardless of the economic circumstances around them. A year later, they are all talking about wanting to be environmental stewards. So then you have a lot of work to do with us. The bioregional biocultural assessments. I actually tweaked this because the ones that I've seen actually were not relevant to our community. But this is now, that comes back to the place-based education and solutions for poverty. When education is sustainable and place-based, we are talking about movement of the mind. But I also look at education not just about the mind, education of the being. If we can intervene in a way that is holistic, spiritual, and honest, we can actually surpass the sustainability mark and begin to move into a state of resiliency, and hopefully we can actually thrive one day. I hope that whenever you hear about a village called Macheke being a thriving community, you think of this day, this moment. Our voice is so very important because it has been marginalized for far too long. Some of the things that the research heroes that I worked with were saying are kind of shown in this diagram here, and we are seeing that the word life was said by pretty much everybody. When we speak of life in our language, we are talking about sustaining. Hey, sustainability. The word people. We are such a communitarian community that it is difficult to speak just of the self and forget others. So most of the time people would speak of themselves, how proud they are, how far they've come. But also they'll talk about the neighbor and the aunt. Somebody in the clan. I see you. The word God also showed up in many of the conversations. In Shona, that word is Mwari. When I asked one of the 10-year-old students in Macheke, a little girl, do you consider yourself to be poor? She said, I am not poor because God remembers me. So I look at poverty in Macheke as a lack of knowledge or will, right, to restore a diminished ecosystem, and the lack of abundance, which I am terming somewhere that confluence of hope, faith, gratitude. I anticipate that even in the developed world, there are people that have so much money, but they lack gratitude or hope or faith. Our measurement of progress should not be the GDP, because then it means we are the third lowest where in the world, right? Who wants to be the third lowest? Not me. So we're actually looking at other examples and saying there are few other countries that are doing this, Bhutan being a very great example. We can measure our progress based on how happy we are. We are working on our environment. We are rebuilding our economy. We are caring for each other. But how happy are we? When all is said and done, and I think deeply of my father in this moment, one of the greatest lessons that he taught us was of happiness. Happiness enough that he named his firstborn child, where's Dr. Madziva? Her name means happiness. Sustainability to me, I'm looking at it as when basic needs have been met. Follow me on this one. Human development should primarily be about being more and not having more. I'll show you some images, and my challenge to you is, where do you see poverty? That's mommy and your sister. Difficult terrain, but I'm there. Where is the poverty? Let's continue to reflect and let's breathe. Gooseberries. My young sister Linda, if you're on. Linda, if you're on, you should know about this picture, the gooseberries. This was her deep play. She used to pick this fruit all the time and bring a lot more for us to share. Where is the poverty? Where is the poverty? If some of you need help, I see a number of things. Back to my African proverbs. I'm a true African. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a dialogue and that you will walk with us. Tatenda.
presentations. Who'd like to share?
Soon to be Dr. Molly. Remember the first day you came to sit upstairs and you say, I am poor, community poor, how do I make them up? What mindset was it? You are the same person.
Thank you, Pramod. And I love you very much. Yeah, that's what we call transformation. That's what real PhD programs should do. I was once poor. But look at me. Where is the poverty?
After that performance, it's hard to say anything. You were just absolutely amazing, and it has been a joy to work with you and see you move through this program and into your vision and take full hold of the possibilities of the Czech and wherever else you might have an influence.
Thank you, grandfather. Oh, there's a question.
It's more of a comment than a question, but thank you for opening our minds so we are not defined by where we are or what's going on around us. Because yet, looking at what the world has defined poor or poverty, we can stand up in a situation. Oh, I still need it? I thought I had a big voice. We can stand up in our situation, in whatever is going on, and transcend it. And that goes farther than what's going on. Thank you for giving us that power to have mental freedom. So wherever we are standing does not define us. Thank you.
I love you, Bonnie. Oh, wow.
Thank you, sister. I have to tell you something that yeah, it's kind of funny. But when you said in your gratitude, when you said, and I have never heard anyone say this, as an African American descendant from enslaved Africans, I have never ever heard, and it brought tears to my eyes, the thank you for Africans who came before me on American soil. It just tore me down. For those of you who may not know how sometimes there's so much of a separation between our African brothers and sisters and those of us who were brought here against our will. And I have never, in all of my life, heard anybody say that. Thank you.
I have to hug you. So we are going to dance, people. Mushamkazi, the maternal spirit, and everybody can tune into it. So can we cue our song and all of us on our feet? If we want to go in circles, we do this at our parties all the time. Just to celebrate, because guess what? We have gratitude, we have hope, and what else? Thank you. Are you going to cue the song? That song that you played before. Sorry. Is it still on the speaker? Because everybody's like this. I know you can see her. It's okay. Well, Melanie, are you going to help us with the dance?
Oh, sure.
Yep, let's do it.
Let's go. Whatever it is, I'm ready.
We need to work out the barbecue before we eat it later, so let's do this.
How's it go?
Thank you, everyone. That's the last of our dissertation presentations for this symposium. It's been very rich and celebratory. just incredible to witness all these studies and research and accomplishments by all our graduates. What a unique situation.
Oh, this might.
This one right here.